This video is all about adjusting the background of your photos in the Windows Photo app. Just the other day I was capturing some Melbourne, Australia trams with the panning technique. So I'm going to use some of those as the examples to make some adjustments on the backgrounds. And let's have a look what some of these techniques, what differences they do make. So with this image, there's the first one. And I'm going to use the technique of simply cropping. And I come across to the top left and I've pressed edit, brings me here. And the first thing I'm going to do before I do the cropping is slide this scale over to the right so as to straighten it. And now I'm using the straight cropping. I click on the frame because it opens up the default. When you open up edit, it opens up default all set to crop. And I have it on free flowing cropping. If you want to make it fit to a particular square or something like that, a particular shape or a ratio, perhaps for social media, fitting various formats. But in my case here, I'm happy to leave it as free, which is free flowing, which means I can edit it in any way, shape or form I want. I'm not restricted by a particular ratio. So on free, and I bring the cursor over and simply drag this up. I'm working off with a laptop. I'm going to bring it up to there. Already we've massively got rid of a lot of distractions, and because I want to elongate it, because the trams, I like that. I could, if I wanted to get rid of that, I could go like that. In fact, I'm going to do that. Look at that. Already. And this is through the basic technique of simply cropping to improve your background. So now what I'm going to do is come along and save this in my downloads. I come up to the top to save options, save as a copy. I'm going to put it in my downloads. I'm going to put in the word crop. So I know I've cropped this photo, and I press save. And that's in my downloads. And look at that. Look at that. Amazing. What a difference. Immediately, the background of that photograph, the whole photograph is massively improved by simply cropping. So with this photograph, the blurring technique in the background is indeed a great way of dealing with backgrounds, but we're talking about making adjustments in the Windows Photo app about the background. So what else could we do? We could come up here to the top left-hand side, click Edit, click on this. We've got the cropping logo on the left, and the second one along from the left, I call it the sunny one. So in this example, we're going to use the vignette, and it's this one along here on the right-hand side. And we've got two ways to go. The first way is to slide up this, which will darken all the four corners and bring the focus in. So that's at 100%. This is one of those things where normally I don't use the full whack of it all, but in this case I would. So again, I'll do it again. So just watch the corners. That's that. And if you want to see what it looked like originally, there you go. Just use your cursor. I'm using a laptop, and you see down here it says viewing original. That's how it looks. If you let go, it shows you the effect of the vignetting. Now, what's interesting, if you bring it back to neutral, if we go this way, it lightens the corners. Again, press this, that's the original. So you can have lighter corners, depending on the image, it can be more effective, but I'm going the dark one for this particular photograph. But it's, again, you can see how there's all sorts of different images that could really be suited to that. But in this particular case, there you go. And if you press, and that's the original, that's that, it brings the focus in even more. So now we've switched over to a picture of Sydney Ferry using panning technique. And let's just say we're bothered by this little corner bit, which is part of a fence. So we'll come over to edit. The first thing we'll do, we've got two choices. We can just crop up at the bottom, which is quite nice because it just leaves that There, I like that a lot. So that solves that. But let's say I'm bothered by this and by here, just these little bits, and I just want to clean it up. So I would come over to the Erase tab. And this has got its, this can be very, very handy, very, very simple and wonderful to use, but it has extreme limitations. But if you're using it for certain things, it's absolutely brilliant. So you've got your brush size, and you simply by sliding this left and right, that's the largest circle you can get. So I'm going to leave it around about the middle there. And we're going to come over here to this bit here. And let's just say, just want to, it's a distraction. So I come over, I click on it and let it do its thing. Look at that. Pretty amazing. We'll come over here, the faint outline of a distant yacht. Look at that. Now we'll come over here. Let's say this is bothering. Now you see how it's kind of working. There we go. And often it works best by including overlapping in a certain area, which gives it obviously a guideline. Now let's have a go at this. Let's see what happens when we try this bit here. Yeah, you see how it's very limited. It's made a start, but it's certainly not complete. Whereas the ones over here, they were. So let's keep persevering with this and see where we get to. So for illustrative purposes, I'm persevering with this. Now, because it's a blurred background to begin with, we're getting away with a lot as well. So by repeatedly using the brush, constantly going back and re-clicking, this is what we've ended up with. Now, we get away with it because the background was blurred in the first place. If it wasn't blurred in the first place, it would be more obvious. Whereas over here, where we did these repairs, these adjustments, if we go again, it removes it even more. That was where the yacht was. So by going twice, we've even erased it even more. So it has its limitations, but as you can see by these two adjustments over here, it's highly effective for certain things. Now, if you had not seen the image before, you wouldn't be super aware of it. So it definitely has its purposes. Experiment with it, have fun with it. So for certain things, it's absolutely brilliant. It's incredibly efficient and it works really well. But for other things, it struggles to read it and do it appropriately. It struggles to remove in the way that perhaps you would like. But the key there is simply experiment. And you always, once you do something like this, don't forget you're not stuck with it. I mean, to keep a copy in the first place, you've got to save it. And then at any time, you can come up here and just simply go cancel. And you're back to the original photo. Now with this one, we've got the slats of the wooden table under the plate, and let's say we find that we find that distracting and we want to reduce that. One way of going about it is come up to Edit, and we go over to the right-hand side icon at the top. In the middle area at the top, go to the right-hand side, and that's the background adjustments. We're going to use the blur. The remove and the replace are both things that I won't be using on my photographs. I think they're quite rudimentary in many respects. They don't have the polish to them, if you like. The blur has more scope. The first thing that happens when you open up the image and click on the background tab is that it starts to look for the background, and we can see here at the bottom, success, we found the background. And you can see it's now highlighted. So the area that's now highlighted and striped, that's what it is recognizing as its background. So with that, we click on blur. Now it's at 50 at the moment, and it's one of these things where, unlike other things, I ramp it right up to get the full effect, because I'm either looking for the blurred background or I'm not, generally speaking. So I'm going to save that, and then we'll compare the two. And I think it's been quite effective. All things considered, the simplicity of this Windows Photo app, we don't have to get into, I mean, that was incredibly quick. Once you've used these things a few times, it can become incredibly intuitive, if you like, to just get the pictures in there, make those basic adjustments. They might be basic adjustments, but they often have big effects on the images. Another one you can use to bring out the background, as an example in this landscape, coming over to edit again, clicking on my sunny icon, and go to saturation. So this is early morning, and it's a nice shot. And if we bring over the saturation, normally I'm quite gentle with the saturation adjustments, but see how it's brought out the background noticeably. So I'll probably bring it down a little bit, say 83. So that's the way it looked originally. That's with the saturation lift. Originally, saturation lift. See how it brings out that background. So it's another tool we can use to bring out backgrounds. Now this one's a little different because the background's incredibly straightforward and uninterfering to the eye. But we can still bring the subject out from the background. And a great way to do that is we can click on edit, come over to the sunny icon, and we go to contrast, and we beef that up, and see immediately, like we ram it right up. But let's come back to say 75. See how we're still dealing with background because it's brought the subjects out directly from it. That's the original. That's with the contrast boosted. Original, boosted. And while I'm here, I know it's not about cropping so much, but again, we're working on backgrounds. Look at that. By lifting the contrast, we've really brought the subjects out from the background, even though it's a plain background. Keep in mind, adjusting contrast is a great tool to turn to have an effect on your backgrounds. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've found these 6 different ways to alter backgrounds helpful, from the cropping, contrast adjusting, using the background removal tool, saturation, and the other one was the blur effects in the Windows Photo app. Now, some of the photos featured in this video were actually captured using the panning technique, which can create some pretty dynamic and artistic results. If it's something that does interest you, be sure to check out my upcoming Sydney Harbour online course. In the course, I'll be diving into long exposures as well as panning and show how I use both these techniques, capturing some stunning images of the Sydney Harbour from 2 very different perspectives, both the long exposure as well as the panning. The course isn't finished yet, but I'll certainly be adding a special offer link in the description when it's available, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future tutorials. Until next time, keep exploring new techniques, and keep having fun with your photography.